Imagine an explosion with the force of 1,000 atomic bombs, flattening a forest the size of a major city, and creating a shockwave that circled the entire Earth, twice. Now imagine this happened in 1908, decades before the nuclear age. There was no mushroom cloud, no radiation, and to this day, no one knows for sure what caused it. This is the story of the Tunguska Event, the largest impact event in recorded history, and its enduring, terrifying mystery. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, the remote and sparsely populated region of central Siberia was bathed in the quiet light of the early summer sun. Local herdsmen and settlers were beginning their day, completely unaware that in a few moments their world would be violently and inexplicably torn apart by a force from the heavens. At approximately 7:17 a.m. local time, a colossal bluish fireball, described as being as bright and as hot as a second sun, streaked across the sky at an incredible speed. This object, whatever it was, then detonated in the atmosphere with a blinding flash of light, unleashing an explosion of unimaginable power over the quiet Siberian taiga. The blast was estimated to have an energy equivalent of up to 30 megatons of TNT, making it at least 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The resulting shockwave was so immense that it flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of dense forest, knocking down an estimated 80 million trees like they were matchsticks. Eyewitnesses hundreds of kilometers away were knocked off their feet by the sheer force of the air blast, and the heat was so intense that it set their clothes on fire. The sound of the explosion was deafening, heard over 800 kilometers away, and the seismic shock was registered by seismographs all across Europe and Asia. For several nights following the event, the sky over Europe and Asia glowed with an eerie, silvery light, so bright that people in London could read newspapers outside at midnight. This was due to the immense amount of dust and ice particles that had been blasted into the upper atmosphere, reflecting the sunlight from beyond the horizon. In the immediate aftermath, a pillar of smoke and debris rose an estimated 80 kilometers into the sky, a horrifying monument to the power of the blast. Yet, despite the colossal scale of this event, the world at large remained mostly unaware of what had just happened in the heart of Siberia. The region was so remote, so isolated from the rest of the world, that the first scientific expedition to investigate the site would not arrive for almost 2 decades. The political turmoil of the time, including World War I and the Russian Revolution, made any kind of scientific investigation completely impossible. It wasn't until 1927 that a Russian scientist named Leonid Kulik, a man obsessed with finding meteorite fragments, finally led an expedition to the blast zone. Kulik and his team endured an incredibly arduous journey, traveling by train, horse, and finally on foot through the unforgiving Siberian wilderness to reach the site. What they found when they arrived was a scene of almost supernatural devastation, a landscape that seemed to have been scorched by the wrath of a god. They saw a vast, circular region of flattened forest, with the trees all pointing radially outwards from a central point, a clear ground zero for the explosion. The sight was both horrifying and baffling, a silent testament to an event of almost unimaginable power. But the biggest mystery was not what they found, but what they didn't find. Kulik, being a meteorite expert, was absolutely convinced that he would find a massive impact crater at the center of the blast zone, the hallmark of a large meteorite strike. He searched the area for years, leading multiple expeditions, but he never found a crater, not a single one. Nor did he find any definitive meteorite fragments. This was the birth of the Tunguska mystery. A colossal, world-altering explosion had occurred, but there was no impact crater and no definitive physical evidence of what had caused it. If a giant space rock hadn't slammed into the ground, what other incredible force could have possibly flattened a forest the size of Tokyo? This lack of a crater has fueled a century of scientific debate and wild speculation, leading to a host of fascinating and sometimes bizarre theories. The most widely accepted scientific explanation today is that the Tunguska event was caused by the airburst of a large meteoroid, or a small comet. This theory proposes that a space object, likely between 50 and 100 meters in diameter, entered the Earth's atmosphere at an incredible speed. The immense pressure and friction of its passage through the air caused it to superheat, break apart, and explode violently, while still several kilometers above the ground. This would be what is known as an airburst, which would release all of its destructive energy downwards, creating the massive shockwave that flattened the forest. This scenario would perfectly explain the pattern of the fallen trees and the immense power of the blast, all without creating a traditional impact crater. If the object was a stony meteorite, the resulting fragments would have been small and scattered, making them very difficult to find in the swampy terrain. If the object was a comet, which is primarily composed of ice and dust, it would have completely vaporized in the explosion, leaving no fragments behind at all. This airburst hypothesis is the most plausible and scientifically sound explanation, and it is the one that is supported by most of the available evidence. However, the complete lack of any undisputed fragments of the object has left the door open for other, more exotic and exciting theories to emerge. One of the earliest and most bizarre fringe theories was that the explosion was caused by a tiny primordial black hole passing through the Earth. This theory suggests that a microscopic black hole, perhaps no larger than a grain of sand, but with immense mass, could have entered the atmosphere over Siberia. Its passage through the air would have created a cylindrical shockwave, resulting in the observed devastation before it exited the other side of the planet, likely in the Atlantic Ocean. While this is a fascinating idea, it has been largely dismissed by scientists because there is no evidence of a corresponding exit event, which would have been equally powerful. Another equally exotic theory proposes that the Tunguska event was the result of a collision between the Earth and a small piece of antimatter. Antimatter is the opposite of normal matter, and when the two come into contact, they annihilate each other in a burst of pure energy, far more powerful than a nuclear reaction. If a small asteroid made of antimatter were to hit our atmosphere, it would result in a massive explosion consistent with the Tunguska event. However, there is currently no evidence to suggest that large, stable chunks of antimatter exist anywhere in our observable universe, making this theory highly speculative. Of course, no great mystery is complete without a theory involving extraterrestrial intelligence, and the Tunguska event is no exception to this rule. The UFO theory suggests that the explosion was caused by the crash or the mid-air detonation of an alien spacecraft. Proponents of this idea point to some eyewitness accounts that describe the object as maneuvering or changing direction before it exploded, something a natural meteoroid would not do. Some have even speculated that it was an alien ship that intentionally detonated itself to prevent a catastrophic impact with the Earth's surface. While this makes for a great science fiction story, there is absolutely no physical evidence, such as wreckage or strange materials, to support this claim. Perhaps the most famous and intriguing of the fringe theories involves the brilliant and eccentric inventor Nikola Tesla, a man far ahead of his time. This theory suggests that on the morning of the Tunguska event, Tesla was conducting a secret experiment to transmit massive amounts of electrical energy wirelessly. Using his Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, New York, he supposedly aimed a powerful beam of energy towards the Arctic, but his calculations were off, and the beam struck Siberia instead. This is a popular idea among conspiracy theorists, but it is not supported by any historical evidence, and the physics required for such a feat are beyond even what Tesla was known to be capable of. So, what truly happened on that summer morning in 1908? Was it a comet, a black hole, an alien ship, or a science experiment gone wrong? The overwhelming scientific consensus points towards the airburst of a comet or a meteoroid as the most likely and logical explanation for the event. This explanation fits most of the known facts and does not require us to invent new laws of physics or invoke extraterrestrial intervention. However, the enduring lack of a smoking gun, the definitive fragments of the object itself, means that a small, tantalizing sliver of doubt will always remain. The Tunguska event serves as a powerful and terrifying reminder that our planet is constantly moving through a cosmic shooting gallery, a universe filled with unseen dangers. It is a testament to the fact that a relatively small object from space has the power to unleash force comparable to a major nuclear war. The event highlights our own vulnerability as a species, and the importance of tracking near-Earth objects to prevent a similar or even worse event from happening in the future. If an impact of this magnitude were to occur over a major city like New York or London today, the devastation would be almost unimaginable. The mystery of Tunguska is therefore not just a historical curiosity. It is a stark warning written across the Siberian landscape. It reminds us that the greatest threats to our existence may not come from within, but from the silent, indifferent void of space. What is your own personal theory about the Tunguska event? Do you believe the scientific explanation? Or do you think a deeper mystery is still waiting to be uncovered? If you found this mystery as fascinating as we did, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to Knowvia for more deep dives into the unknown. Don't forget to share your own theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching.